Chains bided Arcadius's palms, the steep chasm of Tartarus looming steeply below. Charon, being the devilish sadist that he was, insisted upon dragging him to his personal site of punishment. It was apparent the fates must have been holding some variety of grudge against Arcadius, a testament to the sheer number of beings whom he had taken a distaste towards him. But the specifics as to why had been lost to the man. If you had committed even a tenth of the atrocities Arcadius had in his lifetime, you'd have a hard time recalling too. A chilly breeze spiraled outwards from the seemingly bottomless pit, and as Charon dragged him ever closer to the edge, the hair on Arcadius's back perked up, a bitter, unearthly series of cackles, so faint to be almost intangible, left an imprint of intimidation upon his very psyche. Arcadius didn't doubt for a second that the owner of those inhuman cries was none other than the imprisoned Titan Lord himself, Kronos. "Why don't you just leave me to the Furies?" Arcadius spat, not concealing his newly found disdain for the ferryman. "Don't they usually play the part of torturers?" Charon grinned madly, tugging an iron chain connected to the man's manacles. Arcadius was almost usurped off his feet, barely avoiding a one-way drop to Tartarus.
"Do not fear. You'll be seeing enough of the sisters to make up a millennia soon enough."
Closer, he was dragged. "Why?" He gritted his teeth, focusing all of his will upon resisting the immortal ferryman's strength. "Are you doing this?"
"Oh,"
Charon teased.
"surely you recall your offenses against me, huh?"
His haunting words triggered a reminder in Arcadius's mind. Long-forgotten acts resurfaced, for so long submerged in the sea of his misdeeds, now revealed in every excruciating detail. Through the distorting mists of fog laid the silhouette of a cemetery. He stumbled forward, the teachings of his mother embedded into the depths of his memory. The protruding stones of a grave came into a sharp focus, and Arcadius took a heavy breath, readying himself for the events on the verge of occurrence. As his palm settled on the grave's inscription, a flare of power radiated within him, and the barrow was reduced to a mere dust, a fleeting billow of particles passing through cautious fingers. A hand grasped his knee, and those better left in Hades' domain began to stir. So that was what had infuriated the minor god to such an extent. Necromancy. "Look, Charon," Arcadius began, on the verge of paying Kronos an unplanned visit. "I apologize for depriving you of dead to escort, but don't you think this is all a little overboard?"
Overboard?
The ferryman snapped.
"You meddled with the workings of life and death, disrupted the very foundations the cosmos are built upon. There is a reason why only Hades is granted the right to manipulate the complete going-ons of the underworld. Foolish demigods such as yourself are better off getting yourselves killed following the footsteps of your precious role model, Hercules. Well, guess what, you dimwit? Even he bared the curse of mortality. His only escape was apotheosis, ascending to join the gods themselves."
Charon was blabbering on so aggressively, Arcadius struggled to even get a word in edgewise, much less a tangible sentence. For a moment, he was a little alarmed the ferryman was aware of his parentage. Not many even paid attention to his mother, Hecate, though now that he thought upon it, dabbling in reviving the dead was a considerable pointer of whom exactly his mother was, with her being the goddess of witchcraft and necromancy and all.
"So unless you plan on undergoing a divine metamorphosis, you should cease your wrongful manipulation of your mother's powers."
One shake of the chain too many, and Arcadius had stumbled over the boundary line. Only by sheer instinctual awareness and dexterity alone did he avoid plummeting fully, his upper body just about clinging to the lip of the chasm's edge.
Even Hecate herself has condemned your actions.
Charon berated him, seemingly unbothered by the slippage.
She handed me the literal keys to Tartarus, you fool. She wants you to face repercussion.
It was then that Arcadius did something he previously never would have dreamed of. He prayed to Hades. Lord Hades below, I suggest a proposal, he began mentally. And if you are to disagree with the conditions I shall set forth, I vow on the river of Styx itself that you may do with me as you will. His body was suddenly warped, consumed in a pearly white beacon of so bright even Charon was mystified by its presence. Farewell, fisherman. I do hope the queue of awaiting passengers hasn't become too innumerable during your absence. With a defeated screech, Charon tossed the side of his chain towards Arcadius. But alas, it merely passed through the man's fading after image. Arcadius rematerialized in what appeared to be a cluster of brick hallways, all of which were colored a Stygian shade of blackish crimson. He suddenly found it increasingly troublesome to breathe, the air somehow heavy, as though the place's very existence was a weight upon him. His knees buckled, and Arcadius's skin rapidly paled to a freakishly waxen complexion, forehead seeping to the violet carpeting below. He was unable to see as Hades drew near.
What is it you so desire, son of Hecate?
He gagged, his every limb riddled by a sharp feeling of compression, as though he had just dived into astonishingly dense water. As he forced his head to jolt upwardly, he could only make out Hades' knees and feet, the god's staggering might so suffocating that his vision had developed an alarming fuzziness. The influx of incomprehensible agony fled his body at Hades' call, almost as quick as it had came. For a while he merely sat, heavy, recovering from the onslaught, as Hades stared at his gawky position, evidently amused.
Tell me, Arcadius.
He crouched, whispering into Arcadius's ear, with an inflection that sounded as though it were formed from the harsh flapping of bat wings.
My wife Persephone shall soon grow curious of what is causing my absence. I am not a god that approves of wasted time, so if you have called upon me just to blabber on with trivial excuses...
No, Lord Hades. Arcadius hastily reassured, voice quivering. Like I previously mentioned, I propose a redemption.
You shall find your redemption with the Furies!
Hades roared, as if he weren't restraining himself. Arcadius was sure the god would have hurled him through the palace boundaries and across the entirety of the underworld with the force induced by that singular outrage. I'm aware, Lord Hades, but my deal, I am sure, shall at the very least bring some amusement to you. Arcadius gasped, still not fully recovered. If you were to return my mortality, I propose a battle on a scale the underworld has never seen before. He lifted his head, eyes consumed with a crazed glint, the kind that Charon would approve of, if he didn't want to rupture every bone in Arcadius's body, that is. I shall battle the entirety of the underworld, every current damned soul present in Hades at this very moment, none from this point onwards, excluding gods and other non-mortals, of course. And if I am to miraculously succeed, I may ascend to the Isle of the Blessed with Elysium. Hades, much out of character, gave the man a bewildered look, as though he thought him utterly out of his mind. Then, a fiery, blazing heat filled his pupils, a grin so terrifying it would have imploded the hearts of the living spreading manically across his face.
For only my pure entertainment and nothing more, you, my dear Arcadius, may be granted your wish.
Only a booming fit of cackles could be heard over the palace of Hades that night, almost boiling Arcadius's blood right then and there, and the ichor of the living pulsated through his mortal heart once more.